This is going to be our lab 9. You're going to be finding out specific heat of a metal. First thing we're going to do is we start boiling water in a 600 milliliter beaker. We need styrofoam cups for calorimeter and ignition tubes or test tubes and a metal, unknown metal that we want to find out the specific heat, a thermometer and weigh boards is what we need for this experiment. While the water is being boiling, you need to get the mass of the unknown metal sample. Put the weigh board on the balance, tear the scale, and then get the mass of the metal sample 1 first. Write it down on the piece of paper with all the significant figures that the balance gives you. That the weight of the metal sample 1 for the first trial. And we need to do 2 trials. And when you do get the second trial, it should be from the same kind of metal. You're going to transfer the metal into the ignition tube. And put a knob on the test tube. Get the mass of the second metal sample for the second trial from the same kind, because we are going to get the average at the end, so you have to perform 2 trials from the same sample. Write down the mass of the second metal sample. Transfer that to the second test tube. You can label the test tubes 1 and 2 so that way you know which test tube contains which sample. Check the temperature of the boiling water to make sure that it had reached the 100 degrees Celsius, and put both of your test tubes into the same water bath and leave the metal sample in the water for 10 to 15 minutes. And in the meantime, you can come and get your calorimeter ready. You will need 2 calorimeters. Get the mass of the empty calorimeter 1 first and record the mass, and get the mass of the calorimeter 2, empty calorimeter, and write it down the mass. Again, make sure to label both of your calorimeters 1 and 2. So the metal sample 1 goes to the styrofoam cup 1. We need to add water to our calorimeter, and this water you can pour from your deionized water bottles that is in room temperature. And you need to add about 50 to 60 milliliters of water. You can use a graduated cylinder. In fact, first you can pour the water to the graduated cylinder about 50 or 60 and then transfer it to the calorimeter, and you can get the mass. That would be the mass of calorimeter with water. And write it down. Now we are going to put that hot metal into the water in the calorimeter. Before we do that, you need to get the temperature of the water. That would come around 22 degrees or so. That is the temperature in the calorimeter. Now you carefully take your test tube from the water bath and then pour the metal into the water inside the calorimeter. What's going to happen right now? The temperature of the water will increase because you put a hot metal into water. So you can swirl it so that the heat will evenly distribute throughout the water and write down the highest temperature that it reaches. What is happening here? The metal will lose heat and then the water will absorb heat. So as a result, temperature of the water will increase, and you write it down, the highest temperature. And you do the same thing with your second trial.